Yu.
I'm Amanda and welcome back to Truffle Thoughts.
So season 2 of The Summer I Turned Pretty just came out. I think by the time this episode is out, it has already been out there for quite a while. So we decided to do an episode about talking about our favourite romance tropes.
And obviously spoilers alert because we're going to be giving plenty of examples, not only for Summer I Turned Pretty.
So The Summer I Turned Pretty season 2 is out, and basically it's a love triangle about childhood friends, Belly, and Conrad and Jeremiah. I'm team Conrad. So because of that show, it got us thinking why is the love triangle trope still around? I thought we have left that in the vampire era. I guess with the resurgence of book talk leading to more demand in books, the love triangle trope had to sneak in some way. Personally, it's not my favorite trope because girl, it could be a guy, but it's usually a girl. Why you gotta be falling for a boy when you already have a man with you? Why are you falling for two lovers? And I can't stand when the main character is stringing her two lovers along. Make up your goddamn mind. Just pick one already. Literally romanticizes minor infidelity, and I don't stand for that. Looking at you, Bella Swan, Elena Gilbert. Why are you kissing Jacob and Damon when you've got Edward and Stefan already? Just stick to your own man. I can't. But anyways, I'm Team Selena. So, because I can't take the toxic relationship between Damon and Alina. But back to The Summer I Turned Pretty. So, I've not watched the season 2 one yet, but I actually really love the first season because one, the cinematography is so nostalgic. It literally takes me back to summertime, even though it's summer in Malaysia all year long, but I just get so nostalgic. And I love all the characters in the show. My favorite character was Shayla. She was just so confident, so thoughtful, so warm. She's the kind of girl that you want to hate because she's just so perfect, but you can't help but falling in love with her and wanting to be best friends with her because she's just so genuine and warm, and I'm so sad she won't be in season 2. We've also got this beautiful friendship between the mother Susanna and Laurel, and also we got to see Conrad, who was Benny's love interest, deal with loneliness and anxiety as a result of knowing his mother's cancer returned, and he had the burden of keeping it to himself because his mother did not want anyone to know. So the love triangle was not there 24/7 in every single scenes because it had many other storylines. Therefore, it had all these spaces for the characters to be fleshed out, and then we get to see them grow. So when a love triangle scenes does pop up, it feels like a reward. It's oh yes, finally I get to see two boys fighting over Belly. So it feels like a reward, a thrill rush. Because it was just given at the right amount of time, not all the time, just enough. So why do we still love the love triangle trope even though it's so annoying most of the time? But I guess you get two boys fighting over your affections, so you just want your attention, and we all love that, and we all love some jealous scenes. So a love triangle gives us that, but magnify it to every single scene. And watching it on screen, it just really plays with our emotions because you get so excited and get butterflies when you see the character and then the love interest you're rooting for, and then you feel slight disgust and anger when you see her with the other love interest that you don't want her to be with. It's such a thrill. I love it so much, but I'm really annoyed by it. But I'm also give me more, but no, but yes.
You know what the solution to love triangles is? Polygamy. I actually do like the love triangle trope because like you said, who wouldn't want multiple people to be vying for your love and attention? But TikTok has this rose for our shared love for love triangles, which is people who like the love triangle trope were always overlooked and crave attention.
Well,
I mean, who wouldn't want the drama, right?
Who wouldn't want two people fighting for your affections? I would love it.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the drama. Come, Stefan, Damon, fight over me.
Okay, maybe we like it in our fantasy world, but not in reality.
No. Do we?
Okay, so the rest of the video will be me talking about enemies to lovers.
What? No.
Yes.
No.
No? Why not?
No.
So enemies to lovers is an antithesis to the friends to lovers trope, where we see the characters going from despising each other to becoming feral for one another, and that's really exciting. In media, we tend to be able to follow the individual plots where each of the characters suddenly realize that their feelings towards each other have changed. Enemies to lovers tends to be paired with a slow burn plot, and the audience, we as the audience, have this dilemma of like, will they or will they not get together at the end? Something that I personally enjoy is banter, as you know. So it's really exciting to see how these two characters who hate each other are just bantering about how they hate each other, but you can see them falling in love with each other. So Enemies to Lovers brings together the most unlikely of pairings, but it's like the saying goes, opposites attract. The Proposal was the first rom-com that I ever watched, and I would credit it to being the first movie that got me into loving Enemies to Lovers. Margaret is a Canadian editor-in-chief of a New York book publishing company. She's widely hated because she's an insufferable and verbally abusive boss, kinda like Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada. Ryan Reynolds plays Andrew, who's Margaret's PA. Margaret's visa renewal was denied, and at the risk of being deported back to Canada, she forces Andrew to marry her so she can get a green card. In return, Andrew makes Margaret agree to make him an editor after the marriage and publish his book. They travel to Alaska, which is Andrew's hometown, to meet his family. The two of them struggle to hide their hatred for each other, and they have to play the part of a couple in love. It's not easy because not only do they hate each other, but because Margaret is hyper-independent and Andrew has a lot of family drama. But the family forced them to get married in Alaska, which was so not part of the plan, but they agree anyway. In between then and the wedding, Margaret and Andrew start to develop real feelings for each other. Margaret feels guilty for lying to Andrew's tight-knit family and community, so she admits the truth to them and to the immigration officer and flees Alaska with 24 hours before being deported. In the end, Andrew proposes to her for real and they do get married. In hindsight, this was a pretty typical rom-com plot, and obviously the uptight businesswoman trope is kind of there nowadays, but I still really like this movie because, it gives me nostalgia thinking about how this was the first movie to get me into Enemies to Lovers. Another movie I can think of is Princess Diaries 2, and this is kind of a step up from the academic rivals trope because there are major implications involved, which is literally the throne to a kingdom. In the first movie, we follow Mia as she struggles with the transition from awkward teenager to Princess of Genovia. But in the second movie, the stakes are higher, so she grapples with having to find a husband since Genovia has this really dumb rule about queens having to be married before ascending to the throne. Mia does get into an arranged engagement with someone whose name I forgot, but she also butts heads with Nicholas, who's next in line to the throne if Mia doesn't ascend. They have a sort of instant connection when they meet, but that changes when the race to find Mia a groom gets more intense. There's so much banter in the movie, and at one point they both even fall into a fountain together in the middle of an argument. Nicholas' uncle does everything he can to foil Mia's ascension, but Mia and Nicholas' undeniable attraction wins in the end. The chemistry between the two characters really sells the story, and who wouldn't want Chris Pine or Anne Hathaway to be their enemy?
Enemies to Lovers is not one of my favorite tropes because it can get quite toxic sometimes. For example, when Elena had a very, heart-to-heart talk with Stefan, reflecting on their relationship, and this was like after they broke up, she confessed to Stefan saying like, why can't she talk to Damon like this? And I'm like, girl, Damon's your boyfriend. You should be able to communicate with him healthily instead of like going to your ex, which shows that you should have been with Stefan, because even after you guys are broken up, you guys can still communicate healthily. Like, why did you end up with Damon? Stefan, it was Stefan all along. You guys were like soulmates. You guys could talk with one another. You guys went through so much. Damon and Elena is just all about angsty sex every time. My rose for Enemies to Lovers is that you love danger and mystery. It's like that Taylor Swift song where she says, I feel perfectly fine, but I miss screaming and crying and kissing in the rain. Yeah, so basically it's like, you're already in a healthy relationship, so why are you looking for trouble?
I have to disagree because not everyone is in a perfectly healthy relationship. Good for you, Pingyu.
Okay.
As humans, we all have our dark sides, but the beauty of Enemies to Lovers is that your enemy has a million reasons to hate you, but the fact that they're able to find another million reasons to love you is just really romantic. You already know what you hate about your enemy and what flaws they have and all, so wouldn't you prefer someone to already know your flaws and they know your flaws, but you're still able to be together anyway?
The fake dating trope is where a guy or a girl, they have to fake date the other person, and then the main reason for this is because they want to make their ex jealous and get back together with them, or they just want to make another guy or girl they like jealous. We see this in To All the Boys I Loved Before, where Peter Kavinsky and Nara Jean fake date so that Peter can make his ex Jan jealous and get back together with her. And for Lara Jean, she agrees to it so she can show Josh, who was her older sister's ex-boyfriend, that she's not interested in him anymore. In the first variation that I mentioned, both partners know about this fake dating situation, but in another version, it could be that only one partner knows about this fake dating arrangement and then the other person's just left in the dark to the end. Like in 10 Things I Hate About You, Cameron wants to go out with Bianca, but Bianca rejected his advances and informs him that she can only date when her older sister Kat dates. And also because Bianca was interested in this guy named Joey. But anyways, Cameron engages bad boy Patrick and pays him to take Kat out. Kat finds out and is hurt as she assumed his feelings for her were fake this whole time, but he confesses that he has fallen for her as he got to know her better. I know this is like the typical storyline, but it just gets me all the time. I know they'll fall in love eventually, but like, you know, I'm just like, oh no, and then like, oh yay. So this show got us this beautiful poem by Kat.
I hate the way you're always right. I hate it when you lie. I hate it when you make me laugh. Even worse when you make me cry. I hate it when you're not around and the fact that you didn't call. But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
Hunger Games had this variation too, where Katniss puts on this PR love act with Peeta for the entertainment of the capital to secure sponsors so that she and Peeta could survive. But Peeta didn't quite know that it was all for the cameras because our great boy just loves Katniss so much. He was heartbroken after finding out, but as a respectful man he is, he never forced this relationship on her and always remained respectful of her boundaries, as he understood the act she had to play to ensure both of their survival.
If it weren't for the baby.
I love fake dating because the characters had no romantic feelings for one another initially and only fall for one another after getting to know the other person and opening up to them. So I find it romantic when a couple does not instantly fall in love with one another and it's not on a superficial level. They only fell in love after personally getting to know one another.
But it is superficial. They are both dating with a goal to make someone jealous. Isn't it superficial? I think that the one version of fake dating that I like is marriage of convenience. I'm personally very over any high school, college narrative because we are so past that, we're getting old. So I'm past this narrative already. Plus, marriage feels a little more serious because there tends to be a contract between the two people, and the goal that they have is someone's going to get money out of it. So if you're going to fake date or fake marry someone, why don't do it for the money? Like, it's so juvenile to do it to make someone jealous. So I'm going to roast fake dating courtesy of TikTok again. And TikTok says, is fake dating your favorite trope because you believe the only way someone will ever fall for you is by being forced to spend time with you to accomplish some other goal?
Well, yes, because like one of my love language is quality time. So I really do enjoy when the characters are like forced to spend time with one another, like forced proximity, and then they do end up falling for one another. So yes, except the roast on toast.
Don't boast. When we think of soulmates, we automatically think about that one person who you're destined to be with for the rest of your life. And obviously there are platonic soulmates, but I'm going to refer to mostly romantic soulmates today. In our current society where dating is really exhausting and situationships are rampant, there's something really wholesome and comforting about the idea of soulmates. Because if you think about it, it's like in the book of life, it's been ordained that you are going to definitely cross paths with that special someone someday. I really believe in soulmates. One reason I like it is because, yay, there's less work, because it's already been ordained somewhere that you're definitely gonna be with this person for the rest of your life. And another thing is like, if you think about how individual people have their own individual challenges, it's just really romantic to think about how like despite the trials both of you face individually, your paths will still cross eventually, and then the trials that you have would be like a shared thing with each other. I find that most of the soulmate plots we see in media are heavily intertwined with fantasy, And we both had a shared love for Twilight, so I'm gonna start there. In Twilight, Bella is a human who's forced to move to a new town to live with her dad. There, she's thrown into a world where vampires and werewolves exist. The first time she meets Edward, there's this palpable, unexplainable tension. Edward is a walking red flag, but Bella can't help being attracted to him. Even when Edward literally abandons her and Jacob throws himself at her, in the end they still live happily ever after. And then there's Jacob's romance plot, which is, okay, to be fair, the entire saga is a bit questionable because they are okay with like crazy age gaps and relationships with minors. But Jacob's attraction is explained to his attraction not to Bella but actually to Bella's eggs, because Bella ends up giving birth to Renesmee, who ends up being Jacob's mate.
She's not even a minor, she's just a baby.
She was eggs.
Yeah.
She was cells.
She was eggs. He was in love with cells.
I admit that some soulmate plots are a little weird, like Twilight, but I do credit Twilight to being the first movie to actually get me into my Wattpad phase of werewolf romances. I also noticed that soulmate tropes are very often shown in Chinese dramas, and I'm gonna reference my favorite Chinese drama, Eternal Love. Bai Qian is the youngest child of the Fox King, and she's arranged to be married to Ye Hua, who's the crown prince of the Nine Heavens. In Chinese drama, a common theme is that deities need to undergo trials to ascend to high god status. During this time, they are stripped of their powers and memories and forced to live a full lifetime as a human. When she was a human, she saves a snake who happens to be Ye Hua, the guy she's arranged to marry. They both fall in love, have a human marriage, and have a son together, but then a series of misunderstandings and evil godly meddlings ends her trial. She's now ascended to high god, but remembers everything, and since the pain of mortal love was so unbearable, she decides to take a memory loss potion. Ye Hua has no idea she's actually a high god now and thinks she's no longer alive. They meet 300 years later, but she doesn't recognize him or her son. Long story short, he wins her back and they live happily ever after. The reason why I really love this Chinese drama is because it shows how the two of them face a lot of trials and obstacles between their love, but they still end up together in the end.
I don't quite like the soulmates trope.
How dare you? How dare you? How are we friends?
Because it's like, in contrary to what I like about fake dating, you instantly fall for the person. So like, what are you falling for? My only exception is Stefan and Helena, because they do fall in love instantly, but we get to see how they find strength and solace with one another through all the challenges they have faced. And I think it's quite similar to what all the other movies you mentioned and what you like about them. So like, they do fall in love instantly, but you know, we get to see them overcome challenges. So maybe I'm like kind of into it, I guess, because you get to know the other person.
I think we define soulmates differently because I don't actually associate it entirely with having an instant connection with someone. I do believe that instant connection is a subset of soulmate tropes that we see, but I think the soulmates trope that I enjoy a lot more is the one where you're able to embrace each other's idiosyncrasies and respect your boundaries, and still, you know, despite all the trials that you face and your differences, are able to come together and be happy together.
So the roast I got from TikTok is this: do you really like the soulmate trope, or do you just feel so unlovable that you think the only way you could ever find love is if it was cosmically assigned to you?
Yeah, pretty much.
And no effort.
No
No.
effort.
Yes.
I mean, like I said, yeah, I do believe that soulmates exist, and it's just really comforting to know that there's some divine intervention, someone out there is looking for you, and you know, eventually your paths meet. It's just really romantic. So roast me all you want.
In the friends to lovers trope, the couple, they're usually childhood or teenage best friends, and then they've grown to like fall for one another. But somehow, for some reasons, they grew apart due to distance or relationships, but then they reunite back together again. Movies with this trope for me is Love, Rosie. It follows Rosie and Alex, who are childhood friends, and we watch them fall in love with one another, but always doing so at the wrong time due to distance or because they were romantically involved with someone else. Another movie is One Day. The relationship is quite similar to Love, Rosie, where they always fall for one another at the wrong time, but realizes their feelings for one another and reunite again. My absolute favorite show with this trope is Normal People. So some say it's considered as the miscommunication trope, but it also overlaps with the friends to lovers. So Marianne and Connell are secondary school friends, and Marianne was the oddball, while Connell was the popular guy. but that status quo is flipped once they both enter uni. It sounds like such a surface story when I describe it plainly like that, but honestly the characters are so complex, and then we get to see how complex relationships are, and also get to see the individuals' struggles and how they deal with relationships. Like we get to see Connell dealt with feelings of inadequacy when he enters uni, because he's just filled in this classroom where people just know how to express themselves on the go, but he takes time to actually share his thoughts and feelings. We also get to see him dealing with depression as he copes with the guilt and loss of losing a close friend from secondary school, and being, if I recall, the only one from his friend group who managed to enter uni. So he dealt with a sense of guilt for leaving his hometown behind and making a future for himself. We also see Marianne dealing with the lack of self-worth she has for herself, leading to sadistic relationships with men as a result of how her family mistreated her, and even how Connell treated her in secondary school, when he kept their relationship a secret in fear of losing his popularity status, as Marianne was considered to be weird. So he decided to take the popular girl out as his date instead to their secondary school ball, after sleeping and having this very intimate relationship with Marianne throughout school. And the biggest reason why I love this show so much is because of the chemistry between Marianne and Connell. Like their chemistry was just so raw and intimate and real. I felt like I was intruding their relationship as a viewer, because it's just such a beautiful, reflection of how relationships are in real life. The common theme we see in this friends and lovers trope is it's always going to be you, no matter time, distance, or relationships you have with other people. They will always find their way back to one another. And similar to what I like the fake dating trope, both characters, they had to know one another before falling for each other. And like just the tension of having to hide your feelings for one another is just so good. So I'm very excited to watch Penelope and Colin? Is it Colin?
Yes.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this season.
So you're telling me that you like the "it's always been you" kind of thing, but you don't like Soulmates?
Well, because they got to know one another first. But Soulmates is like instantly connection. I don't know you, but I'm already in love with you. So
You not hear how I said soulmate and instant connection are just like it's a subset.
yeah,
it's not the same thing.
I know it's a subset, but if I were to just take the stereotypical trope of a soulmate, it's like instantly fall in love with you. Like bam, I'm in love with you, and like why?
No. Yes. I don't like friends to lovers. And I think it's very clear. Like I don't even need TikTok to tell me how to roast it, because I can easily roast it myself, because I find the trope to be a little too risky. Because think about it, like you have this really beautiful friendship with someone, and maybe you decide like, oh, we're in love, then you start to be in a relationship with each other. But people are different when they are friends versus when they are a couple. So why would you want to ruin such a beautiful relationship? And it's really risky, because what if it doesn't work out? Like, would you stay friends with them? Like, if you don't, then your friend group, if you are part of a wider friend group, would have to choose sides, which is like, it's just nobody is happy in this situation. There are endless possibilities when it comes to the forbidden love trope, and a few examples that really stick out are like brother's best friend, or the other way where it's like best friend's brother, your boss, secretary, employee situation, or even enemies can be forbidden love. The whole concept of forbidden love is just really seductive, because you always want things you can't have, right? And you always see in media where like they're having their secret stolen glances, or having to hide their relationship from everybody, falling in love in a safe bubble away from the eyes of the public. It's just something really romantic and exciting about it. But eventually they reach a point of conflict, because you can't stay hidden forever, right? So once they reach that point of conflict, it's very interesting to see whether they're actually able to overcome the challenges of being out of their safe bubble and now being in the public. I think there's also this sense of relief as an audience or a reader when you find out the relationship is finally in the open, because you get to see a conclusion of like, will they actually make it in the public? It's like how we see those celebrity romances that didn't last through the pandemic. Yeah, so it's interesting to see whether their relationship actually survives or not, and if they do, when they are supporting each other once they're out in public, it's just really, really nice to see them just there for each other even when they're out of that safe bubble. Titanic is a classic example of the forbidden love trope that ends in tragedy. So I'm not going to detail the plot of Titanic because I think we all know it, but it's just one of those classics that everyone has to watch at least once, we see that the main conflict in terms of the forbidden love is the differences in class between Rose and Jack. I don't think this stuck out to me when I first watched the movie at 14, but Rose was 17. She was forced to be engaged to a 30-year-old so that she and her mum can maintain their high-class status after her father's death left them in debt. Jack is poor and only got on the Titanic just because he won some gambling game. In a classic Princess and the Pauper plot, the two of them fall in love as Jack introduces Rose to a world outside fancy tea parties and expensive jewelry. Rose is without a doubt out of Jack's league in terms of wealth, but he opened her eyes to experiences of real people. While the forbidden romance ended with Jack's death, Rose was changed for the better and went on to live a full and happy life. I love musicals, and the one musical performance I actually watched live was Hairspray, but I'm gonna reference the Zac Efron movie because that was what got me hooked on Hairspray in the first place. When I first watched this movie as a teenager, I just really liked it because of the music. It took me a little while later when I rewatched it to realize that it was actually a lot to do with race as the main conflict. And the main forbidden romance that I really love is actually not between the main characters, but the supporting characters. Penny is a sheltered girl with a religious mother and falls in love with Seaweed, which was extremely scandalous because the musical was set in the 1960s when racial tensions were still high. She hid her love from everyone, including Seaweed, but some events in the musical led to her mother tying her up in her room. Seaweed comes to the rescue, and the musical number where he rescues her and they both admit their feelings for each other is something that I can gush on and on about for a long time. They escape and reveal their relationship to the entire town by kissing on live television. I think that's a super bold move, and I have to read you a line from the musical number. So the first part is sung by Seaweed where he sings, "Living in the ghetto, black is everywhere you go. Who'd have thought I love a girl whose skin was white as winter snow?" And then Penny sings back to him saying, "In my ivory tower, life was just a hostess snack, but now I've tasted chocolate and I'm never going back."
I actually like the forbidden trope too. It's one of my favorites because I mean we always want what we can have, and I love all the stolen glances, the illicit affairs, and usually the forbidden trope is very apparent in fantasy genre, which is my favorite genre. So I just love seeing the two characters, find out about each other's differences, their different upbringings, but then still somehow falling for one another. So I do love it.
That sounds like enemies to lovers.
Yeah, I guess so. But I guess they don't want to constantly murder one another.
Fine.
Which I know is part of the thrill too.
Yeah.
So according to TikTok, it says, do you actually like the forbidden trope, or do you just want what you can't have?
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what we said.
That's what we
already.
said twice.
Yes.
We just want what we can't have.
Exactly.
I guess we're all hopeless romantics at heart.
But it's interesting to see how, although we are hopeless romantics, we both love different tropes.
Yeah, actually we do.
Yeah. Have I converted you to like enemies to lovers and soulmates?
No. Have I?
Have you what?
Have I converted you
To what?
to liking friends to lovers?
No.
Okay. And that's all for today's episode.
Follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel Truffle Thoughts for new episodes every 2 weeks.
You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Truffle Thoughts.
Thanks so much for watching or listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Come for the truffle, stay for the thoughts.
Bye!